Hey, I'm Dan, 37, gay, married, and welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be part 2 of me reacting to Game Changer, going back to the source material that inspired episode 3 of my favorite show, Heated Rivalry. In the last video that I did, we reacted to the first 10 chapters of the book, and we left our boys, Scott and Kip, in this battle of, you don't owe me anything, I don't expect anything from you, I like you a whole lot, which is cute, but we know will come to kind of a breaking point here later in the book. We also get the pet name of Sweetheart officially cemented for Scott. Scott also does a big thing and tells Kip to officially tell Elena about their relationship. We get a bit more about Scott's backstory and like growing up as a poor kid in Rochester. And it feels like Scott is officially starting to understand that Kip is going to be receptive to acts of service, not big, gigantic gifts. All right, let's jump in. All right, so chapter 11. We get a big sort of roster change for the Admirals, which unfortunately interrupts a beautiful morning that our boy Scott was planning to spend with his man Kip. We also get Kip going to an Admirals game with his dad. So officially the news has broken that Zullo is out. We heard, at least from Scott's POV, he was kind of dragging the team down, went out and did some shit he wasn't supposed to, and it was official. We had reached the limit from the team, and he was out. Of course, he's working with his coach, being like, focus on the game, we'll adapt, don't worry about us. Mr. Captain running the team. And Scott's feeling a little bit lighter, just knowing that that liability is no longer a part of his problem. He also has had quite a good series of dates with Kip and is unintentionally glowing, which Carter clocks. And Huff backs it up. Of course, continuing this poking and prodding, I think you got some last night, blah, blah, blah. And we get Scott just kind of like giving in and being like, maybe I was. And Scott tried like hell to fight it, but he was grinning like an idiot within seconds. Look at this Carter, he's blushing. All the feelings are on the surface here. Of course, his mind is drifting back to waking up next to Kip, and we get this continued slip of the mind and this back and forth of the look on his face had been so, well, not loving, obviously, but affectionate. Come on, guys. We then get Scott texting Kip, you still at my place? No, left 20 minutes ago. Oh, is everything all right? I think it'll be. Sorry again for rushing off. Don't apologize. We had a great night. Blah, blah, blah. When can I see you again? Kip replies with, you are insatiable. And Scott, not trying to hide that, says, I am. Call me later when you're done. We can figure it out. And unlike kind of the stretch that we had seen previously where Scott was away for a series of days, he was going to be in town for a week, which means in theory there's a lot of opportunity for them to spend time together, which is great. But of course, Kip didn't want to push, impose, still not totally comfortable with what exactly this is. But he finally gets a call that he's been waiting for from the Museum of the City of New York, inviting him for an interview, which is great. And Scott trying to give some update about what all was going on, trying to, I think, be helpful. Kip is saying, you just got to get your head back to where it was this morning. And Scott replies, that's exactly what I'm trying not to do, but I keep getting distracted. We also get some like negative self-talk that seems to be a through line here with Kip of, wondered if he should tell him about the new job interview, why, so when I don't get the job, he can know exactly how big a failure his boyfriend is. I get it from like a character standpoint. I think he probably needs to be a little bit easier on himself, but that's that. And then he introduces the idea of potentially going to one of the home games this week that is actually against the Brooklen team just across the bridge, which obviously would be his home team and one that his dad loves. Scott obviously was very happy to hear this and offers to get tickets. Again, this financial war that they are waging with one another is present. Of course, Kip trying to be independent and whatever is like, I can buy them. And I think in a fair turn of events here, he's like, Scott says, I'm not trying to insult you. It's easy for me to ask for them, and then you can save money for something else. In that power dynamic, you're going to a game of his, he has access to likely free tickets, and you are trying to scrape pennies together. It feels like something that you could give on. I know that there are bigger things to come that I completely agree like is too much, too big, but thankfully we see he does end up giving in and getting the tickets for free, which is great. But he's like, he wouldn't make a habit of accepting these sorts of things. He is setting that boundary immediately and early on. And Kip, having been worried about overstepping or pushing, Scott asks, will you come to my place tomorrow night? I will. And he went on to go play Montreal. Next morning, Scott wakes up. He'd been waking up alone pretty much his entire life, and so it shouldn't have felt as jarring as it did. Starting to get used to the feeling of another person there with you, okay? The team had played incredibly well, but it wasn't as satisfying as he felt it should have been. And yes, Zullo was an ass. He needed to go. But I think writing this character as the nice guy, the guy with a heart, he still feels bad that this is happening even to him. And we get Kip and his dad getting ready to go to the game. He's kind of admitting to himself he doesn't spend nearly enough time with his dad, never really did stuff together. He works so much, blah, blah, blah. And obviously his dad is super stoked to cheer for the opposing team. And we get the beautiful cliffhanger. They're up 3-2. The Admirals are up 3-2. Kip's sitting on the edge of his seat just like with bated breath. Come on, let's go. And there's a shot, and Scott goes and dives and kind of lets his body be the defense for the goal and takes a puck to the chest. As is the theme with the Game Changer videos that I'm doing right now, so much of this just could never have been put into a single episode. And so I don't think any of this actually made it into the show itself. Maybe bits and pieces got woven together. But it's doing a lot of the setup work. It's, again, referencing the debt, the financial disparity, the desire for Scott to make things maybe a little bit easier for Kip, and Kip feeling uncomfortable with that. Bringing more of Kip's dad into it, right? They're going and having this dad-son bonding event, watching Kip's boyfriend play hockey, and the job that we didn't get as part of the show. We really only got him going and applying for grad school. This is an opportunity for him to almost like hop, skip, jump into the job that he had brought in early on that he was interested in, that he doesn't feel totally comfortable applying for, but with some good pressure from friends, opts to do so, and gets the interview. Moving on to Chapter 12, this is full-on recovery mode for our hero, Scott Hunter. We are back in the stadium. Kip has just seen his man get hit with a puck and go down. He laid crumpled on the ice in a fetal position, one leg slowly moving in and out. Obviously, Kip is freaking out with no one to really listen or help him or, way to impact what's going on. He thinks that he can't breathe. He's just kind of like yelling out to nobody. But he was able to get up, which is a big relief for Kip, as if he thought he was keeping this cool at all and that his dad didn't 100% know that this was going on. This really kind of cemented that the cat might have never even been in the bag, but if it was, it sure as hell wasn't now. His dad's kind of like reassuring him he's a tough one. There was a little bit more of the game. Kip was not paying attention at all, mind simply on Scott. But the Admirals ended up winning, and we get Kip just texting Scott, just tell me you're okay. And even the setup of this whole thing of he doesn't get to spend time with his dad, he was glad to be doing this. It was kind of a perfect, almost like way to bring their interests together, his interest being Scott, his dad's interest being the Scouts. He admits that he felt bad that he couldn't enjoy his dad's company right now. He'd been having a great afternoon, but now he was completely preoccupied with worry, which he's human, right? We get a text about an hour later. I'm okay, nasty bruise, but okay. Heading home now. God, you scared me. And Kip is like, you still want me to come over, ? Like, you seem to be in a lot of pain. And not wanting this, like, text exchange to continue, Scott just calls him. I'm sure, I don't know if I'll be able to do much. Okay. You boys have been all over each other. Like, I think a night of hanging out probably would actually be helpful for you, but he just wants to make sure that he's aware. And Kip, knowing that if he wasn't actually hurt, that would have never been something that Scott would pass up on or even allude to. It's like, I knew it, you're hurt. He got a chest x-ray, nothing's broken, please come over. And he's like, I actually like that you're so worried about me. It's really sweet. Obviously, having lost his parents and also never being in a real relationship, he doesn't really get the privilege of having people, dote on him outside of obviously the team and staff and whatever. Again, trying to persuade Kip, it's not that bad, it looks worse than it is. He sees it and has a different opinion and immediately goes into take care of him mode, runs, gets an ice pack. Scott kind of admits to him, it's been a long time since anyone's fussed over me like this. It's nice. And apologizes for scaring him. They're hungry, so Scott offers to get up. I bought stuff for breakfast that we didn't use the other day. Obviously, Kip is not going to let that happen. And he benches him, which I love. And as they're kind of settling him for the night, Scott brings up, just a warning, I'm going to be stressed out the rest of this week. Which is, again, somewhat cruel on Rachel Reid's part here, because they obviously, this was supposed to be potentially the week where he's home for a long stretch of time, they can spend more time together. Now we have a significantly bruised rib that will limit his physical activities. And then we also find out that it's the deadline is the following Monday, which is the most stressful day of the year for players. And with the whole Zullo thing, Scott's just like, I don't know what's going to happen. And they just kind of settled in for the night to watch a movie. Scott had fallen asleep, and Kip was just smiling down, admiring him. He looked so peaceful and young, and trying just to slowly move his head because his legs were falling asleep. He accidentally woke him up. Hey, let's go. It's time for bed. And Scott's apologizing because they didn't, stay up and talk or whatever. I had a nice time tonight. And we get Scott kind of immediately asking for what he wants. Will you come here tomorrow night? You want me to? Yes. You should keep some stuff here. That would be easier. And he admits, I like having you here. Again, we're apologizing because of the physical limitations. And he's like, I want to make it up to you. And Kip kind of comes back, I like talking to you, right? We're moving now beyond this, they can't keep their hands off of one another. It's just, not just physical in the way that Ilya and Shane were, but very, very physical forward. Whereas I think there's a lot that they still need to learn about one another as human beings. That it's good that an injury was an opportunity for them to kind of slow down a little. Overnight, his wonderful bruise had turned an angry midnight blue color. Next morning, obviously they're together. Kip is in the kitchen. Scott comes up behind him, wraps his arm around him, kisses his neck. In that moment, Scott could imagine all of it. Being with Kip, living with him, going to bed and waking up together, preparing meals, going to restaurants, traveling together, not hiding anymore, just being happy and complete with a man he ... about. We know the real word there. Being brave enough to let the world know who he really was. But even if he was brave, it was a lot to ask of Kip, which is a fair point here. So yes, it would be huge for Scott, and there would potentially be implications for him. But this also would take somebody who is not in the limelight and put the spotlight directly on them. And obviously the concept is not foreign, right? But I think about sometimes when famous people go public with their boyfriends. Gus Kenworthy is one that I think of, where every once in a while I'll be scrolling Instagram and I'm like, oh, right, I'm still following that guy. And it was his ex-boyfriend that myself, along with I think a bunch of people, just went and followed when their relationship went public. And that would be, I think, in the best case scenario, what would happen? You just have all these eyes now on you. But I also can imagine a world in which that brings a lot of negative attention, especially depending on what industry you're in or what, the whim of social media has decided they feel about you. And so that's a fair call out, I think, by Scott here. And rightly so. He's kind of course correcting, being like, besides, we've only been seeing each other for a couple of weeks. It's ridiculous to even think. Kip has to go off to work and begs Scott to take practice easy, knowing he's stubborn. That's probably not going to happen, but he still at least asks. And Scott felt the heaviness that always landed on him whenever he and Kip parted. He always wanted more time and let his mind kind of run a bit here. What would it look like maybe if Kip didn't have to work? He was a stay-at-home boyfriend. But realizing that that only would actually entrap him more, he's kind of like, damn it, I'm fucking this up, is the general sentiment. This last segment is really showing that even though the boundary of the closet for him exists today, he is in a position where his brain is telling him to think about the alternatives, about the possibilities, about what could be, in a way that I don't think we got clearly in the show. And I think it's good that we're getting his inner dialogue here of like, this is what I want. And now we're starting to find a tipping point of like, this is what I want. Now I need to figure out how to get it, essentially. We're back at work with Maria and Kip. She will not let up about the Scott Hunter thing. He's still trying to lie to her and being like, he's hot, sue me. And she brings up, can you imagine dating him? It would be amazing, like Cinderella, which Cinderfella is right there. And she brings up, I was working Saturday, he didn't come in. I wonder if he's found another silly superstition. No, his superstition was at home with him. And she asks, are you ready for your interview today? No, I'm going to do my best. And she gets him with the joke of, do you think that Scott will start going to the museum all the time if you start working there? Okay. Scott gritted his teeth through practice, wasn't enjoyable. And Carter, being the best friend, is saying, I mean, you could take a night off and actually let it heal, but hey. To which Scott replies, would you? Obviously not, right? I want to take a quick second just to thank a few of the members on this channel. Your support means everything. It helps me pay for all of the equipment that I'm currently using to film this, so thank you. And as a reminder, you get the long form, essentially unedited, copyright-ridden versions of each of my videos, as well as additional bonus content. Just want to thank a few of my members: Mountain Girl 4900, Arlen Sun, Stuart Henderson 3726, R Sage 2009, and Dylan Ross 5510. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. And Carter starts talking to Scott about how him and his kind of secret actress girlfriend, Gloria, got caught by the paparazzi the other night. Their little secret was blown. And obviously, this begins a little mental spiral for Scott. What if that happened to him? What if that happened to him and Kip? Touching, holding hands, kissing. What if that was all caught? Which is a bit of foreshadowing. And Carter's like, all right, we've talked about my love life. What about yours? No, seems like there actually might be something to talk about now. You're the worst liar. I only want you to be happy. I am happy. So are you going to bring her to the Equinox Gala? Are you going to the gala? Yes. Scott hadn't been expecting any of his teammates to be there, and God, it wasn't fair. He wanted to tell Carter, his best friend, that he was bringing his boyfriend to the gala. So far, Chapter 12 was the most sort of domestic. The majority of the scene is them together. Kip's trying to cook for him, take care of him with his injury. And it's also one of the sadder ones because it's not this like hot rush of, oh my God, this is so amazing, blah, blah, blah. But there's been an opportunity for Scott in particular to sit with his thoughts a bit and realize the disparity of where he's currently at with his journey out of the closet and where he would love to be, what he would love to give Kip as his boyfriend, and that he's getting another opportunity, another mirror being held up to him by Carter and this paparazzi thing. And even that, they were just trying to keep it quiet so it wasn't out in the open. But obviously, if Scott and Kip were caught in the same way, it would be a much bigger reaction. And that he really did want not necessarily just these like big let's travel the world things, but even something as simple as being able to tell his best friend that his boyfriend was going to be at the gala, not some chick that Carter assumes is the one he's trying to hide. Chapter 13, we finally get the Equinox Gala that we've been hearing about for most of the book. The TV had been on all day. Again, the looming deadline for trades is happening. Kip was a welcome distraction throughout the day, and the inverse was also true. Kip was happy to have Scott as a distraction, waiting to hear back about how he did in the interview. Somewhat surprisingly, he seemed to be happy with how the interview went, and we don't get a lot of this negative self-talk that we've seen a lot of from him. And for some reason, he's still choosing not to tell Scott about it. Much to Scott's delight, he finds out that Matty Zullo, I think is his name, has been chosen by the Admirals to replace Zullo, probably the best defenseman in the league right now, shows the management has confidence in us. And Scott is officially safe. Thankfully, he had found his good luck charm, because I think if his season had been going the way it was, he probably would have been on the chopping block. And now, with the wait over and the panic gone, Scott is just kind of desperate to spend time with Kip, focusing on other things than hockey and life. Asks him to call in sick, jokes, going late, I'll write you a note. Scott jokes about the reason that he would write in the note for why he was late. And Kip is sad that he hasn't done that and wants to. But he's an adult. He has to go to work. And he finds the strength to not let Scott entice him to screw that up. But he's like, I'm going to see you at the gala tomorrow night. Like, it's not like we're going weeks without seeing each other. I'll see you tomorrow night. And even that will be agony not touching you, said Scott. They've already made the plan. They will go do their separate things at the gala and then come back together. We cut to Scott meeting with his agent, Scott Wheeler, but the whole commercialization of his persona is not his jam. I don't think anything in the previous chapters would lead us to believe that, but we get confirmation here. He knew he was lucky to have so many opportunities to make so much money, but it wasn't why he played hockey, right? It's just a part of the machine overall and not something that he was overly interested in, the celebrity, the brands, the X, Y, and Z. His agent is also kind of picking up on a different vibe and kind of seems like maybe Scott is dating someone. There's kind of a pep in his step. I thought maybe you were seeing someone, and I wouldn't hate if you were dating an actress, maybe a model, something that gets you in the papers, Well, seeing as what we just heard about Carter and Scott's thoughts on that. Interesting placement there. And he's just bewildered, as everyone else seems to be. I don't understand you, Scott. You look like that, and you don't even seem to be sharing it with anyone. Well, he is, but okay. Which is then followed up by, I just want you to be happy. And the suggestions are in conflict with his happiness, but obviously he doesn't know that yet. I'm looking out for you. I care about your happiness. That's all. Seems overall like a decent guy. And not to be one that's deterred. Half an hour after they left lunch, he's sending a screenshot of a beautiful young woman, followed by, are you sure? ? Do you want me to get her as your date? I'm sure. We then cut to Kip and Elena. They're at Elena's place. They're getting ready together, having a great time. We've got to be out of the door in 2 hours. Kip's changing. He's like, I'm putting on my underwear. Don't peek. Wouldn't dream of it. Caught her eyes glancing in the mirror. She again continues best friend mode, asking him questions. Are you sure you're okay with this weird relationship? It would be nice to go somewhere beyond his apartment, but it's great. Do you think you ever will? I don't know. It hasn't even been a month. This is still so early. We're just trying to kind of figure it out, right? But he admits, I've never felt this way. I like him a lot. Elena can't wait to meet him. And Kip, knowing his best friend, asks, you're not going to give him one of those scary talks, are you? If you have to ask, the answer is yes. Of course not. I just think it's fair to warn him that if he hurts you, it will be detrimental to his career. And that he'll be dead. Hey, I love this friend energy. I'm into it. Crack some wine, bump into Rihanna. This is an energy that I can get into. They got in the limo. They're on their way there. And once they get there, Kip is starting to have a bit of like an existential crisis. Rightfully so, he doesn't feel overly comfortable in these rooms, right? He's a cater waiter, he's a barista, he's from Brooklyn, not Manhattan. Like there's all these things that Rachel has written into this character. And then almost to add like insult to injury, there's like a tiny robot that comes up with the appetizers. And you're just like, really? Really? Awesome. Yep. So this stupid little iRobot is going to take over one of my jobs, and I'm going to have to find another one. And he's nervous. He's like, do I look all right? You look absurdly handsome. And they went and had some time to go mingle. This is Elena's company's event. These are the people that she's surrounded with. This is her tribe in some way, and very much not Kip's, right? No one seemed particularly interested in him. Goes and grabs a drink, which is complimentary. It's like, yeah, no shit. And again, we get this like scanning the room where Scott found him the first sight, looked great in his black tux. And Elena's like, you gotta stop staring. Like, this is so obvious. And then she says, okay, he sees you. How do you know? He just lit up like the goddamn sun. Jesus, you guys are doomed. Sun was adapted, or seemingly adapted, by Jacob into the sunshine comment that we see in the show, which was hands down one of my favorite. And we actually don't get that direct quote in the book at all. So such a great little tidbit to take out and evolve. And Scott kind of finds them, is like, oh, there he is. And he's standing with a gorgeous woman who is turning heads even in this crowd. She was the one who he also brought to the Admirals game. This must be Elena. He's in the middle of a conversation with a Jets player, and Kip kind of turns around and just takes his breath away. He looked like a classic Hollywood movie star, and Scott drifted toward him like a moth to a flame. We get this semi-formal interaction. Scott, so nice to see you. This is my friend Elena. Playing along, no introduction necessary, exciting to finally meet you. Wow, you are very pretty. And the momentum was interrupted by the CEO of Equinox and the chair of the event, Jacqueline. She is, of course, under the impression that Scott and Elena have something going on. He's like, no, I came alone. And she's like, okay, who are you? And he's like, I'm friends with Elena. We're here together, but we're just friends, type of a thing. She kind of walks away, and Scott is like, no, I've never met her. I get invited to these things all the time, and it feels somewhat surreal because at first I was just a poor kid from Rochester, and suddenly being immersed in this whole world, this whole other world, rubbing shoulders with New York royalty just wasn't normal. And Kip, of course, can relate. It's like, I can imagine. And that view of Kip, him not being necessarily comfortable in this room, in this crowd, let Scott take a second and be like, I guess that's right. He's never, ever expressed any interest in my fame, in my money, in anything really outside of me. And even when he, wants to go to his games, it's not to be at the games to like put it on social media. Like, look, I'm at the Admirals game in these sweet seats. He really actually just wants to be there for Scott. There's a little lull here. It gets a little odd, which we saw portrayed, at least in the show. And Elena chugs her drink, asks Scott if he wants another one, and heads off to the bar. Kip was staring at the floor, and Scott desperately wanted to tuck a finger under his chin and tilt his head up. He wanted to kiss him. He wanted to tell him that he absolutely belonged here because he was important to Scott and clearly important to Elena. What a supportive boyfriend. And Kip, answering his inner dialogue, says, I feel like I should be carrying a tray. And Scott tries to course correct that. You don't look like you should be carrying a tray around. You look, and couldn't finish the sentence out loud. And is able to find the words, you look incredible. They then started this whole, I can't wait to get out of here conversation. And before things got too hot and heavy, Elena came back and thinks it's best that we get them separated so that people in the room don't start asking questions. And we get a, I'll see you later, Christopher. A little restless and sat with a bunch of people Scott doesn't know. He got up to go to the bathroom. and wandered around, took a few quiet moments to himself until he felt Kip behind him. "Hey, we probably shouldn't be here together." "Probably not," Kip said, stepping closer. Teasing him a bit, Kip asks, "Are you distracted?" "Maybe. You look like you're still hungry." And we get a "God damn it, Kip." And being the teaser here, "I should get back," Kip said, infuriatingly casual. "Yep. Good job." And that was met with a "you're in trouble later" growl from Scott. The night continued, and this is when we get Elena finding Scott for their dance together. "Fly Me to the Moon" is playing, maybe a callback to Blue Moon over Brooklen. And Elena politely ignored his clumsy attempt at small talk. "Are you having a good evening?" "Sure. How's Kip doing?" "I think he's focused on the after party." "Well, that makes two of us." "You like him?" "I do. I really like him." "Good, because he's nuts about you. And you need to understand how unprecedented this is for him." "You think I'm going to hurt him?" "We've only just met. Convince me otherwise." Scott admits that he's fallen for him. She returns with, "You're asking a lot of him." And he says, "I know. I'll give him everything I possibly can. In secret. For now. I think with time I'll be able to give more." There's a brief back and forth where he asks her a question about working at Equinox. She's kind of done with what she needed to get out of this and just says, "You can kiss me if you want to divert attention." He smiled, touched by the offer, kissed her on the cheek. "Thank you, but I won't do that to you." And before they parted, she said, "Kip is the best person I know, and he's happier than I've ever seen him these days. I'm protective of him because I love him." Scott wanted to tell her he loved him too. Watching this, Kip is envious that he isn't able to do that with him. He didn't need people to know they were together. He wasn't interested in showing off or being shown off. He just wished he could share everything with Scott. Fair ask. He kind of drifts off. We get a text with the door code number and says, "Works for the elevator too. I'll meet you there. Text me when you're leaving." And as Scott is trying to make an exit, he gets cornered by Carter, who had seen him dancing with Elena and is convinced that is who he's been hiding and is like, "Your secret's safe with me." "Sure, bud." And he jumped in the car. He let the blissful silence wash over him. Once he was alone in the back seat, the driver took him home. This chapter, we obviously got the gala scene, and we got, I think, the high-level version of what all happened across this, right? We get the seeing one another somewhat nervous in this new environment. We get Kip and Scott being a little bit awkward at first because they're trying to figure out how to do this interaction. At least the last time that they were in a similar situation, Kip was a waiter, and so he was playing his role while Scott was playing his role in that room. And I guess more time has also passed. They've spent more time together. They've developed their relationship deeper. And so in the show, the awkwardness felt, or the way it rode the wave with them, is that leads to this big, like, I can't do this if I can't have you fully type of a thing from Kip. Whereas this was just, I think, them starting to figure out how to navigate somewhat public life together. And we get Elena doing the dance with Scott. I think generally the same sort of context. As I mentioned, that sunshine comment was evolved from that line in the book from Rachel by Jacob and team. But they are leaving this event very happy to go back to Scott's apartment and basically, tear each other's clothes off. But that piece, again, gets shifted because we're condensing an entire book into 40 minutes. And in the show, you sort of fast forward to another event that we'll read later on, where they're having more of this, like, heart-to-heart, I don't know if we can do it this way anymore. So our boys are still chugging upstream here. Really, at the end of the day, Chapter 13 was all about two people physically in the same room not being able to physically be together the way that they wanted. Another small segue, quick. Reading Rachel's books has sparked a little bit of a creative curiosity. And I've actually spent the last almost 2 weeks trying something new. I have never written a book in my life. If I ever wrote a long paper, never once did I go back and proofread it. I am not even a reader by any stretch of the imagination. Like, literally, if it was not for watching Heated Rivalry, I would have never picked up a book, to be completely honest with you. And as such, am completely brand new to the romance of it all. Some of it's found me on TikTok now because of my content around Heated Rivalry. And as I've been reading these things and thinking about it, analyzing the way that she's written these characters and their arcs and the parallels, and even, taking it a step further into how Jacob interpreted those into the show, it became more and more apparent that I have a super active imagination, and I'm often running full parallel storylines in my head, like a second channel to real life that I never shut off. And so it's you know what? Why don't we just try to put those thoughts on paper, bring those characters to life? And I now have a first draft of a novel that is 41 chapters long and 85,000 words. And it is, in full transparency, partially based off me and other people in my lives, and then obviously introducing some of these professional athletes into it. It's about Theo and Boone. Theo is a medical student who is back home studying for the biggest test of his life to get him into residency. And then there's Boone. Boone is a 6'7" tight end, closeted, gorgeous blonde, the huge. Golden boy, loved by millions. One of them spent their whole life being wanted for the exterior. The other's convinced that whole people don't exist because it's always one way or another. We watch them meet. Theo's best friend, Sloan, is a integral part of how they meet and what comes downstream. We see the highs and the lows. We get a secret first Christmas together. Some big shows of love and affection, even though behind closed doors. And that dreaded call that someone saw you in the back of a TikTok. And we get to see what Boone does when he is faced with this dilemma of one of the biggest moments in his career and the guy he is absolutely in love with. So I'm putting stuff together now. I don't know in what form it's going to come out. I don't know even honestly where to post it. You all are the booktube, book talk people. Please help me figure this out. I would love your feedback. I'm going through and doing a first draft revision right now. And even if this turns into absolutely nothing and 3 people read it, it has actually just been so fun to just sit and do and be creative in a way that I have never done before. So if you love romance, you write those stories, you have strong opinions and a pulse, I would love for you to read what I've got so far. Tell me if it works. Tell me if it doesn't. I'm brand new and completely egoless here. I just want feedback. So if you're interested, comment, and I will figure out a way to get you a copy of the manuscript that I have so far. All right, back to the actual writer in the room here, Rachel Reid. Chapter 14. This is the gala after party. Beats Scott back to his apartment. He's trying to figure out the best way for Scott to receive him as he comes home. He's like, should I take this suit off? No, it's very expensive. I look good in it. We should stay in that on. Keep the lights low. And he's waiting for about a half hour before Scott gets there. He walks in. Kip, are you there? Of course, I've Got You Under My Skin by Frank Sinatra is playing. And Scott strode over to him like he was the first glass of water Scott had had in days. Thirsty boy. Obviously, Kip had been teasing him quite a bit and kind of expected to be, quote-unquote, punished for it. But Scott just placed a gentle hand on Kip's face and seemed to take him in for a moment. There was an urgency in his eyes, and when he finally leaned in and kissed him, it was slow and deliberate. It wasn't a conversation. It was Scott telling him something important and making sure Kip was listening. And again, starting to lean away from these like immediate rip off all your clothes and get to the physical of it all. Our boys dance together in the living room, which is so fucking cute. Scott obviously admittedly is an awkward dancer. Kip didn't care. And Scott says, I wish I could have danced with you there. I wanted to show you off. The most gorgeous man in the room was with me, and I couldn't even tell anyone. Kip gets a little brave and says, I'd like to go on dates with you, right? This is now, again, breaking that storyline that he had told himself that I'm totally okay with this. This is perfect. This is all I need. Well, obviously it's not. And Scott, kind of to continue the conversation, asks, where would you take me? Kip considered it. A club. We would just lose ourselves in the music. I'd love to see it. You letting go like that in public. And a little bit of foreshadowing for what we'll see later on. But obviously that is the antithesis of where Scott would traditionally find himself, right? He is not someone who wants to be out dancing loud and proud, or at least doesn't feel like he is. But it does seem like maybe a great end goal for them to kind of search for. And he says, someday. And all the feelings are kind of bubbling up under the surface. They are trying to keep them quiet by keeping their mouths busy. And Scott just says, I want to go everywhere with you. Kip could hear the sadness in the way he said it, knowing that there is a unspoken but I can't at the end of that. And that tonight he would choose to ignore that. Scott was overwhelmed. Somehow dancing fully clothed in his living room was the most romantic experience of his life. He loved having Kip in his arms, in his home, wearing his suit. His senses were full of Kip. He stepped back. He had to make sure that the wonderful man was really here. And Kip's like, what? Are we good? And he says it. Sometimes I can't believe that you're real. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up. And now that all the lovey-dovey has happened, I almost hate to do this. You look so good. But my plans for the rest of the evening don't include these clothes. And we get I Put a Spell on You playing in the background. And Scott is taking charge here. And Kip is happily obeying. And as soon as their mouths came together, Scott lost the ability to play it cool. He is love drunk, wants more and more and more and more of everything. And we get the first sort of glimpse that he is actually going to be traveling then for another week. And so he just has to take in what he can. And the thing that they had joked about him doing with the I'm sorry I'm late note for work has to be put aside temporarily for another version that they both are very much into. And Scott is just looking down at his beautiful, greedy boyfriend of Kip. And they are both completely lost in this together. Scott kissed him and rolled them over so Kip could lie on top of him and kissed him some more. And for the first time, we officially acknowledge that Scott Hunter was in love, even if it was just internally. That love officially gets said out loud. They're having a cute moment. Scott is packing. Kip is in his sweatshirt, kind of tugging at it, asking if he can hold on to the hoodie while Scott's on the road. And he's like, of course, as long as you think about me when you're wearing it. Oh, to be in that stage of a relationship. And Scott throws out, actually, more so than just wearing my sweatshirt, I was thinking that maybe you could stay here while I'm gone. Obviously, you don't have to. Kip's like, really? You want me to? Yeah, I like the idea of you being here while I'm gone, at least sometimes. Plus, it's easier for you to get to work, right? And Kip obliges, and we get the blue socks being placed in the suitcase, which obviously makes Kip very happy. And I'm back on Monday, which is where we introduce Kip's birthday. In the show, obviously, they merge that conversation with the end of the gala night. But in the book, they're two completely separate entities. I happen to have plans that night. It's my birthday. Scott's like, what? It's your birthday? It's like, yeah, I'm turning 26. Why would you know my birthday, right? It's not like Scott can just Google that. I guess you could find him on Facebook or something. But he's kind of mad. He's like, I should have asked. And he's like, you can remember next year. All good, dude. And we get the internal dialogue of Kip admitting to himself and to the reader that he was officially in love. And Scott's kind of detailing the schedule. He's got Detroit, Toronto, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Montreal. And Kip brings up that he's never been on a plane. And Scott's like, you've studied history. There's so much you should see, right? Not trying to obviously rub it in, but he's like, I'd love to take you somewhere. And we get a little back and forth with the last names. Yes, sir. Grady, Hunter. And Kip wants something to remember him by, and a giant hickey on your collarbone is a choice. That's all I'm going to say. But Scott ran his thumb over the mark. His eyes were wild with lust, and they just needed to get something one last time in together before he had to get on the road. They flip-flopped now, and Scott is just... They're both obsessed with each other. You're so beautiful. You're perfect. Come on, sweetheart. Kip couldn't stop smiling. He felt unhinged. He felt like a man who was very much in love. And we get questioning, before Scott left for 9 days, should he just tell him how he felt? And ran through disastrous scenarios and decides absolutely not worth it. And we get an interesting follow-on to the prior conversation that we heard, where Kip had said that he would love to take Scott to a club just to see him like lose himself in the music and whatever. And Scott asked, do you go to clubs often? No, not really. Not for a while now. Okay, forget I said anything. Giving himself up immediately. And Kip's like, are you trying to ask me if I've been hooking up with other guys while we've been... No, I mean, yes, but not because I'm going to tell you not to. I know I'm not available always. Kind of playing into this whole trope of like, I need to get off every day. And so when you're not around, I need to have other options, which I have opinions about. I'm sorry, I'm not jealous. I don't know how these things work, right? Which is totally fair. And Kip reassures him, I haven't been with anyone since we met, just for the record. You're enough for me, more than enough. I have no problem waiting for you. And Scott replies, I know it's dumb. I'm really happy to hear that. Kip pulled him into another kiss. He couldn't let him go. And Scott finally gets out the door. Kip is embarrassed that he starts to like tear up. He's going on a road trip for 9 days, not to war. But a few minutes later, the door clicks open, trying to find some way to re-engage the conversation. I was thinking planes, and everything can happen and blah, blah, blah. And Scott says, I love you. I just wanted to say that before I left. Kip's jaw hit the floor. And Scott follows that up with, I don't expect you to say it too or anything. I know it's probably a ridiculous thing to say or feel right now, but I am in love with you, and I wanted you to know that. And tears now are flooding Kip's eyes, and he admits, sorry, I just thought I was the only one who felt that way. Obviously, Scott's face lit up. I wanted to tell you. Tell me now. I love you, Scott. I'm completely in love with you. Oh, our boys are in it. We then get Scott finally on his trip. He's officially introduced to Maddie, who has joined the team. We get some back and forth about Sweden and Finland and blah, blah, blah. And we get, through Scott's eyes, him saying, Jello was, in a word, blindingly hot, taller even than Scott, at least by a couple of inches. He was definitely a walking fantasy. But Scott's mind wasn't on the hunk filling the seat next to him. It was on his secret boyfriend he'd left behind, the boyfriend that he loved. Obviously surprised that he had actually said it. He's just trying to contain himself on the flight. And we start to see that this replacement of Zullo with Jalo is the perfect thing. He's actually fun. People are excited to play with him. He was the opposite of Zullo. And they are rooming together. And so the new shiny toy is getting a lot of attention. And Scott takes the opportunity to sneak up to their hotel room, hopefully before he comes back, so that he can call Kip. Kip is at home, but he's going to go stay at Scott's tomorrow night. Will they be wondering where you are? Are you asking if I've told my parents about us? No, I haven't, but I'm a grown man, and they can probably guess why I don't come home some nights. And we get back to the I love you of it all. I love you too. I never said that to anyone before besides my mom, from Scott. And me neither, except Elena sometimes. Jala is also considered to be very attractive by Kip because jokingly finding out that he's rooming with Scott, he's like, okay, now I'm really jealous. You have nothing to be jealous of. Maybe I should hop on a flight to Columbus, see if you and Jala want to make a sandwich out of me. Oh my God, Kip, stop. I miss you already. Send me a photo after we hang up, okay? All right, you too. Say goodbye. Scott snapped a quick selfie of himself lying in bed, tried to make it a little sexy, and Kip immediately replied with, I meant of Jalo. Obviously, it's a joke. We're back to Carter pushing. So tell me about your girl. Assuming he is still talking about Elena. Again, trying to deflect. He's like, nah, there's nothing. Bullshit. You've been floating around with a dumb smile on your face humming. You got it bad. And he replies with no comment. And Carter kind of taking this line of questioning from this like joking, jabbing thing that it's been, he kind of catches him in a somewhat serious look and says, I am happy for you, Scott, even if you don't want to talk about her. And he knew he couldn't talk to Carter about Kip, but he could talk to Carter about Elena. A little bit of a loophole. So he chose his words very carefully. I've never felt this way with anyone. It's just very new. That's all. We've been seeing each other for a few weeks. It's nice. And obviously Carter is happy for him, probably his best friend. And Scott really would like to tell him. He'd like to tell Huff and Bennett too. Hell, he'd like to tell the whole world. We've now gone back to Elena and Kip, who haven't been able to debrief since the gala. She admits that she likes him. He's head over heels for you. And he admits that he told him that he loved him. If Elena was surprised, her face didn't show it. Did he? He did. That's a big deal. Giving him shit. It's like, okay, so are you going to quit your job and just live off your millionaire boyfriend? No, he already feels bad enough that he has to depend on his parents' generosity. And she, being a good friend, is trying to push him. We have to move your own personal career path forward here. And just to put a bow on it, she's like, okay, are you in love with him? Yes. Okay. Then it's not weird that he told you so early. Come on, let's go watch your man play some hockey. So this is definitely the high point thus far, right? They are finally giving in to saying the thing, and even though it's uncomfortable because it's early, they feel it, and so they're going to say it. And I think that's awesome. And as storytelling often goes, a high is often met with a low. So we can anticipate that remaining pages here will give us a handful of those. But it's great to see them both in love. And even with Scott not being able to name it fully with Carter, he still gets to say the words and get a little bit of relief, which is great. Chapter 16, Scott is on the road, starting his first game in Detroit, and we get a bit of the unraveling. Scott and his team in Detroit, they're there ahead of their game, and it was cold as hell. It's wintertime. He had hoped to be able to sneak out, go take a walk, call Kip, but a little too cold for that. So he decides to flex his fame card a little bit, goes down, was very gracious with the young guy behind the front desk, asks, is there anywhere that he could just take a call? Business center, anything like that? Yes, there's meeting room number 3 over here. And pulls the Scott Hunter move, I guess, which is looking at the name tag and explicitly using their name back to them to make them feel important, just like he did with Kip. This obviously not so much in a flirtatious way, but also then does the $20 tip. So clearly a move that he has. He calls him. They've had 2 wins. Kip is, in fact, staying at Scott's place. He's like, I've been snooping around. You keep your gold medal in your underwear drawer. Why isn't it on display? And obviously, with this information, Scott has figured out that Kip is at his place. And again, still not fully comfortable with the whole thing. Is like, yeah, if that's okay. Well, bro, you're already there. And he asked you to do so. But confirming again, of course it's okay. It's my idea. Seems generous. You're my boyfriend. I'm in love with you. You can stay at my place whenever you want. Love that. And wishing that maybe they could do more than just talk over the phone. Wish he had his own room tonight. Me too. Kind of wanted to put on a show for you. I want to do that for you, Scott replies. Obviously something he hasn't done before. And Kip again is teasing quite a bit here. And Scott is trying very hard to get him to stop stop tempting him. He's in a conference room. He can't do what he would like to do. And even though he can't do that, Kip is alone in bed in the safety of Scott's apartment. And so that's okay. I can entertain us. Scott loved and hated the plan. He slipped in a little sweetheart to sweeten the deal here. And we get a little bit more of this like Dom sub stuff where Scott is guiding Kip through the motions. And we get Scott for the first time feeding back a pet name, which is Baby. And there is a surprise in the nightstand drawer that he wants Kip to use. And Scott is remembering the moments in which he has also leveraged this tool. Back when Kip had just been a fantasy, when he had just been the cute guy working at the smoothie shop, and Scott had never in a million years thought he would actually have him in his arms and in his bed. He had used it, imagining it was Kip. I think they both surprised themselves with it all. And he's like, go get cleaned up, get to bed. I should get out of this room anyways. Go to bed. All right. Thanks for the phone call. Good night. And Scott went back upstairs and quickly took care of himself before going off to bed. Skipping to the next day, Kip wakes up, and unfortunately he has an email from the museum, and they've decided to go with another candidate. He called Elena, and we start to lay the groundwork for, I believe, what we see in the show, which is him going to get his master's. And they went with someone who has their master's. Sorry, that sucks. You should get a master's degree. How? I'm still paying off this existing useless degree. And just for fun, he goes onto the NYU website. I believe in the show he applies to somewhere in Boston. I could apply. There's no harm in trying. I love this attitude, Kip. Keep it up. But the combination of being rejected, him being alone, sent him into a tailspin, I think we can comfortably say. What if he never went back to school, never got a better job, just stayed at Scott's apartment, hidden away until Scott had time for him? Or worse, if Scott would end up marrying a woman for public appearance and keep him just on the side? What if he was just convenient for him right now? Or if he would date other men, quote-unquote, better men than Kip. Kip, in this little spiral, feels that he is a nobody. And he's just sitting in the silence and the walls of the apartment, lonely, just needed to text him and just said, hi. Turned on the TV, kind of wanted to get drunk, but knew that was a terrible idea. Smart call. Kip, kind of moping around, is like, hey, second text, can I call you? And Scott didn't even wait. He just called right away. Kip answered. Kip, just landed in Toronto. I have to tell you a funny thing about the airport. And just like hearing his voice, hearing his attention, his laugh made him feel a lot better. And Scott's like, how was your day? A lot better now. Essentially all of that chapter did not make it into the book. But I think it's, and I had a feeling that this is probably how it was going to go, that if we were to hand Kip, at least at this point in the story, this new opportunity where he maybe could begin to like live more independently, X, Y, and Z, there's a lot of tension that you lose in that. And I think we are due for a bit of more spiraling to come. But it is good, I think, that they are beginning to figure out a better dynamic on the road where they can call each other. Like, going down to ask for a meeting room is not, I think, too much to ask, and something that maybe is a little bit easier than trying to navigate that around your roommate on the road, which is also then kind of pointing in the direction of they're going to start to figure this out in maybe a little bit more healthier of a way. It is getting exceptionally late, and I have to get up early tomorrow for work. So we are going to cut it off here and resume Game Changers with Chapter 17 in the next video. Overall, we've evolved quite a bit in these few chapters. We've got the I love you. We've figured out what life could be like in stretches when Scott is at home. We got to have Kip and his dad go to one of Scott's games. Again, I think it's been clear, even in the first video that we did, that Scott's dad sees what's going on. If it wasn't obvious in the first video that we did on Game Changers, Kip's dad knows what's going on with Kip and Scott. And if he didn't fully know, he sure as hell does know now because of the game, the way he reacted, X, Y, and Z. We get Elena continuing to be supportive of their relationship while also being protective, which is great. And we've kind of come out of this like hyper physical early honeymoon phase ideal state and this falsity that Kip has been trying to sell us, which is he will just do whatever it takes and he would be okay with it to be whatever Scott needs him to be. And they're both beginning to push boundaries with one another. Kip is starting to fracture a little bit under some of the pressure, but Scott is almost like equally rising to the occasion, being the one to come back into the apartment, say I love you first, even beginning to start telling Carter about Kip, even if it's through the lens of Elena. They're really ramping up. And I said this in my last video, reading Scott, I have so much more love in for than I did maybe in the one episode that we got of them in the show, where, I mean, you have to rush, and that's all these pages into basically one episode is a lot. But his inner dialogue, his tenderness, his wild dreams of what he would love to do with Kip, for Kip, all of those sorts of things, I think really do make me as a reader much more empathetic to maybe where he stumbles than the version that we saw in the show. We also, Francois just did a interview, I can't remember with what outlet, but alluded to very strongly that you will be seeing more of Scott and Kip in season 2, which I absolutely love. And I hope that we get maybe a little bit more of this like depth of their characters, because I really do love the book versions of them in a deeper, more dynamic and complex way than I did the characters in the show. Again, simply because of the amount of things they had to cram into a single episode. But yeah, so this has been great. I hope you guys are enjoying these videos. Apologies, I wanted to get through a couple more chapters in this video, but it is 9:35 on a Sunday night, and I still have to take all of this set down and go home and export this video. So that's just going to have to wait. But until next time, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and I will see you soon. Bye.